All right, and Super Clean is coming through with a sponsorship again for a degreasing job. Super Clean does an awesome job degreasing your dirtiest parts. It's eco-friendly and we use it a lot for projects like this. We have an oil pan we took off from an 8th gen Civic from the junkyard that we will be trying to tap a new oil turbo drain for it. So we're gonna clean it up right now. This is how it came from the junkyard. Definitely some oil leaks, so we're gonna try to go ahead and use this foam cleaner. Start off with that. So I got my oil pan all cleaned up, and one thing that I want to kind of see is how much does 4.5 quarts actually look like in the oil pan. Where can we feed the new drain bung in? So let's have a look. It's 4.5 quarts of water. I'm definitely pushing oil back my drain line because my drain fitting is like right here. So when I'm driving, braking, all that oil is just absolutely going into my drain bung. That's probably why it's smoking. And another one, and the Civic's torn apart. And you might ask, what are we doing today with the Civic? We got it all torn apart once again, boys. Just trying to make this thing a little bit better, more efficient, and trying to solve some of the problems that we've been kind of having. So I got it torn apart. The new rod we put in looks good. Everything on the inside looks good. Nice and clean oil pan, no contamination or anything. So I'm pretty happy with it. And yeah, the reason we're going this far with the car is because we've been having smoking issues. Okay, now the turbo probably has a good 10 to 12,000 miles on it since I originally got it. And the second time we turboed the car, we ended up changing the turbine seal on the hot side because of the smoking issue. Now the car boosts perfectly fine. There's no issues with turbo boosting pressure. A little bit of wiggle room, nothing crazy, and a little bit back and forth, just a little bit back and forth, and whatever sideways play there is oil pressure, once it's in there and circulating, that would eliminate it. So I'm thinking the turbo is good, but why is it keep smoking? I know it's not the valve seals, I know it's not the engine, and we've torn apart the turbo before, and we can see right around the hot side there is a bunch of oil residue. So we ended up just sealing it with some RTV, which helped for about 3 weeks, and then it's still leaking past the RTV and just dripping on the downpipe and all that stuff. So let me show you what the plan is for today. So my car takes about 4.5 quarts, and that's when the dipstick is on the full line. And I got a new oil pan from the junkyard because I'm thinking about retapping the oil pan. See, I put 4.5 quarts of water in here, and I'm just kind of gauging if this was straight where that water would be staying. And as you can see, that water is right towards that edge there. So now look where our oil bung is, and that's pretty low. That oil bung is pretty low, and it's also angled a hair down. Like ideally you want to be 90, but if I were you, I would angle the turbo drain fitting like a 45 degrees so it goes in smoothly to that oil pan. And by having it a little bit lower, I believe it was backing up a little bit. And also, not to mention, this oil pan doesn't have any like girdles or splash shields in there, so when you're braking and accelerating, that oil is just splashing on the drain. And if everyone knows on turbos, the drain is like one of the most critical parts. If your drain isn't draining properly, or if it's under the oil level, you're gonna have a few problems. Now, I've ran this car lower on oil, probably like 3 quarts, 3.5 quarts, and I'm still having smoking issues. So either my problem with the 8th gen turbo build with the smoking is the oil drain not being angled properly and too low in the sump, or a bad turbo. It's one or the other. But as we're progressing and trying to eliminate the crankcase pressure, right, we already installed fittings on the valve cover to help vent. We're venting the oil dipstick. Yeah, it's either the sump or the turbo, and I'm tackling the sump first before I buy a new turbo for the car. But the car is good. Like, there's no oil residue whatsoever on the oil, on the intercooler piping. It's just the hot side. It's just the hot side. And one thing that I'm really thinking about, if it is the turbo that's bad, I think one reason that it's going bad is because of this super tight 90. I think there's just so much pressure right over here that it might be just prematurely wearing out that turbine seal, because ideally what you want is the same kind of pressure going in and going out. And clearly, I think if this exhaust was a pipe with a smooth angle pipe, I think that would flow a lot better. But the design, I mean, it's compact, it's good to fit in the Civic with air conditioner, but I think if it's not the oil pan, if it's not the crankcase pressure, it's definitely the excessive one is temperature, right? The exhaust gas temperatures are extremely high, probably because it's not flowing out as efficiently as I want it to be. And yeah, it's just way too much pressure also here. So if you guys do some research, let's say like I am running about 5 pounds of boost, I don't want more than 10 pounds of exhaust back pressure. I would love to read out and see how much actual back pressure we're having in the exhaust system, but that's just requiring more sensors and tools that really I don't want to mess around with. But this is definitely more than 2 times back pressure in my opinion, just judging it based off the design. So I had a few ideas. One idea is just take this fitting out. I'm gonna probably angle this fitting up, JB weld around it. Another option is, and I'm gonna test fit the turbo, I might put another fitting here, way up top, as high as I could, angled slightly higher. If that will work, that'll be great. And then I can actually use one fitting like so. I can use this fitting angled up somewhat for the drain, and if I want to, I can actually use this for crankcase venting, right? So obviously everyone vents the valve cover, but do you know anybody who's venting the actual crankcase directly? I don't know, but I think that's a good idea. And the less crankcase pressure there is in the system, the easier it is going to be for the oil to drain down the drain line. Because if you have crankcase pressure, the pressure is going up to the turbo, and then that oil that should be draining freely is actually getting clogged up and getting pushed out the turbine seals as well. So a lot of things with turbos, you know, you would think it'll be a little bit easier and less complicated, but there's just so many factors that interfere with turbo, especially in an aftermarket setup like this. But I'm just tired of it because the version 1 turbo, I ended up having a lot of smoking issues. Version 2 turbo, I'm also having smoking issues, although those two smoking issues were a little bit different. On version 1, I would start the car and within a minute it's just puking smoke, and I think that turbo seal was gone. And then version 2, I just think it's an inefficient drain. I think the turbo seal might be still fine, but we really won't know. We're gonna try to finagle it somehow and jump to some conclusions. As a lot of you guys know, this is just my first turbo build. It's obviously a budget turbo build, but the knowledge we're getting from this build is just priceless. I'm learning so much every time and how to make things more efficient, and it's definitely going to help for future content and just knowledge on how to run a better setup that's more efficient and won't cause us problems in the future. So I'm gonna take a pause, think about how I want to tackle this project, and I'll get back to you guys later. So I think I figured it out. As you can see, we got 2 holes. The new one is obviously higher, and it is also going to be angled. So I'm not welding these on. This is stainless steel, this is aluminum. We're just gonna throw on some JB weld, and we're gonna keep them something like that. So you see, both of them will be angled. See, this one's gonna be somewhat like that, which is great. Straight flow down, and same thing, this one we're gonna make sure we kind of point it upward. So I'm gonna test fit these in the car right now, make sure the oil drain line's gonna fit perfectly here. The reason I chose this one is because straight down from the TB25 turbo, the line goes right here. This one I would have to extend it sideways, and quite possibly, I mean, I don't think it kinks, but it's just the longer and more complicated the route, the more problems you can have. So if everything works out, this is going to be my new drain, which is going to be again higher than the previous drain. And this one right here, I'm just going to run the barb fitting off of it, and possibly just put a 1/2 inch hose up somewhere by the valve cover, and that's pretty much just going to be a vent. Bet you didn't see that before. Not bad. And let me show you guys real quick what the original plan was. All right, so the original plan is not common, but above the oil pan you have this girdle right over here, and what I really wanted to do is tap the girdle here somewhere, so the oil drain would be pretty much coming out from here somewhere, you know, depending where I would want to fit it. Most likely, if I was going to fit it anywhere, it'll be either right here by the crankcase position sensor or right over here. But honestly, this is quite thick material. It's in the car, so it's going to be hard to get a drill on the other side and drill it out, tap it perfectly. And I'm not sure if there's any oil passages between these areas. Like, I'm not sure if I rub into this one, is it gonna crack, and is the engine gonna lose oil pressure? Am I gonna jump in the oil pressure line? I don't know. And with this being a daily driver, I don't want to experiment. The other option I also was thinking about Here, let me turn the crankcase over a little bit. The rods are straight, guys. Everything looks good. But you can see right over here in the back on the block, I was even thinking about just tapping the block up here. Tapping the block, and quite possibly it could just drain from there. But again, I don't know if there's anything between the walls, if it's just casting. I don't want to get into some coolant lines, and I'm overthinking it probably. I'm sure it would have been fine, but yeah, man, I don't want to mess things up with this being a daily driver. So I think me going above and beyond with the oil pan, tapping it the way it is, I think it's gonna be very helpful, beneficial, and should rule out most of our problems, I'm hoping. Cross our fingers. All right, guys, got my oil pan all cleaned up, painted, looks good. And then we got the junkyard oil pan with the fluid. We're gonna throw this about roughly 4.5 quarts into the oil pan, and we're just gonna see what level are the drains. Are they under the water? If they are, that's not a good thing, and it's not a good thing for anybody that's turboing their Civic with the drain bung right over here in the oil pan. So let's check it out. I don't know if you guys can see, but clearly one of the drains, my original one, well, now it's angled, but it's underwater. Luckily this drain is above the 4.5 quarts, so that is good. I'm going to double check the 4.5 quarts again, refill it with exactly 4.5 quarts and see the level. If it's there, I'm pretty happy with it. But again, during driving, like, look what's happening when you back up your oil in your oil drain. Braking and accelerating. Look at the difference between the two. So that's gonna be hopefully a big win for this turbo drain here. So actually the internet says it takes about 3.9 quarts of oil with oil filter. So we got about 4 quarts here of water. But honestly, on my car it takes about 4.5 for the dipstick to read full, and that's what I always ran it at. Comment down below what you guys run, how much oil do you guys run in your 8th gen R18 motors. So I'm trying to hold it as straight as I can with the 4 quarts, and yeah, I mean the new one definitely looks much better. It's holding above, at least without driving, right? I mean with some driving you might have some issues, but yeah, the other one's definitely submerged. So this one might be just capped off, and yeah, we'll definitely use the new one. So at this point, since I got my testing here all done, I'm gonna put the RTV on and get it going. pretty simple once you get into it. Since this is pretty much bare bone, I'm gonna pressure wash the hell out of this. There's some what do you call it, coking in the turbo, so we're gonna just clean that up. And I might even drill out this oil port drain to make it a little bit bigger, since we're at this point. You see, we can drill it out to be a little bigger so it drains a little bit better, and we'll port match it with our oil drain. All right guys, so I'm gonna be porting something on the turbo here, more than I already have. I already ported the hole here for the drain. I ported the inside. I'll overlay some pictures and videos from my phone. And here's the kicker. You see, that's the big drain for the compressor, but the turbine drain is very, very small. So I got a Dremel here, really small, and I'm gonna try to make that drain bigger, and hopefully this works, because that drain is way too small to drain efficiently into the canister. So I think this is eBay cheap turbos, cheap design, but we're engineering right now. Hopefully we get this done. It works better. This with the oil pan combination, perfect.
On the surface I look fine. My brain feels heavy, my traumatized mind. And I'm so tired I can't feel my eyes. Whoa, whoa. I'm petty but I know how to lie. I feel feelings that I can't describe. I'm not breathing but I'm still alive. Whoa, whoa. But I think I'll be alright, 'cause I'm not giving up, I'm not giving up yet. I feel that it's my time, so I'ma give it everything. I'ma give it everything I got. So I'ma give it everything. I'ma give it everything I got. I'ma give it everything. I'ma give it everything I got. Have hope. So many days have passed. I wait around for things to change, but change has not come fast. I'm asking all the questions, but then I question them. Like, what's the point of living, existing when you can't see your God in flesh? I'm looking for the answers. They say to pray instead. I think I'll find them one day, but with a helping hand. I know that it's not easy, but I believe I will. Yeah, I'll get over all my fears and really conquer everything. I think I'll be alright, 'cause I'm not giving up. I'm not giving up yet. I feel that it's my time, so I'ma give it everything. I'ma give it everything I got.
So I got the car, so I got the oil primed, I got the turbo feed line primed, cranked it up a bunch of times. We have oil pressure. I started the car and it looks to me like the oil is just flowing smoothly, whereas before, as you're looking at it flowing, it almost looks like it's static and not moving that much. Let me show you. You can actually see it. vent over here. You can hear the engine. I can really hear that engine crankcase movement and venting. So I think I'm gonna stick with it right now the way it is. I'm gonna use this as a vent. I just gotta make sure under acceleration that the oil doesn't fly out up here. All right, that pretty much concludes this video. We got everything back in, connected. I got the vent from the oil pan temporarily just running right over here. We're just going to be monitoring if it accumulates any oil going up. If it does tend to accumulate some oil, I might pop it into some kind of a drain, like put a can in there or something. You guys already saw the videos of the oil draining with the clear tubing, and everything looks better than it did before. So I got my oil drain line. I had to cut it down a little bit to make it fit, and then yeah, I got everything connected with some clamps, made sure everything's tight, and we are good to go. From this point of view, I'm just going to reinstall my little splash shield here, and I'm going to go take the car for a test drive, and I'm hoping and I'm thinking everything's going to be good. Got a fresh oil change. We went with 5W30 oil weight this time. The first time of when the season started, I went with 1030, thinking it's going to be a little bit better. Thicker's better for, you know, turbocharged applications, especially since we were tuning it, we were running it hella rich and the fuel was diluting. So now that we kind of got the air fuel ratios in check, running 530. Again, still a little thicker than factory, but you do want more protection because of the extra pressures in the engine, and hopefully the 530 may drain a little bit better than the 10W30. So we'll see, we'll stay tuned, and I don't know, I could do an update video on this video, but I'll keep you guys guessing, and until I get some solid concrete information, whether it's burning oil or not, we'll keep it on the next video, the results. Okay, all right, thanks for watching, guys. Peace.
I ain't here for the money, I ain't